What's up guys? Many of you have been asking for a little while now for a easy step-by-step tutorial on how to make your first sourdough loaf. Well, I got a special treat for you today because we are going to be doing just that, but I had to bring a special guest with me today. This is my wife, Bethany.
Hi guys.
She is more of a sourdough expert than I am, so we are going to be working together today to bring to you a very easy sourdough tutorial. I'll explain all the tools you'll need, the step-by-step instructions. So when you're ready, let's make some sourdough. So going over the tools you'll need just a few simple things to get your sourdough journey started. The very first thing you'll need is a very active and bubbly sourdough starter. We did a part 1 video on how to get your sourdough starter active, how to start it, all the benefits of it. So if you haven't seen that, go check out that last video. But this is the very first thing that you'll need. You'll also need a kitchen scale. This is absolutely essential. You'll need this to weigh out all of your ingredients. You also need some filtered water and a high quality, all-purpose, organic, unbleached flour. You're also going to need some salt. We're fans of Redmond's real salt. You're going to need 2 large mixing bowls, a dough mixer, wet towel. You'll see why in a little bit. You're going to need a proofing basket, a score, Dutch oven. We have a cast iron Dutch oven that we can use, but any Dutch oven will work, and some parchment paper, preferably unbleached and chlorine-free parchment paper. I'll be sure to put all of this in the description below, the tools, the ratios, and all the instructions in the description below. All right, so now that you have all of your tools laid out, are you ready?
Get started.
Well, the first thing that we're going to start with is we are going to add 325 grams of our filtered water into a mixing bowl. We're trying to keep it pretty exact. So we got 325 grams of filtered water. And now what you want to do, and this is called the float test. So what you're going to do is you're going to add just a little bit of your active bubbly starter. And what it should do, it should float on top of the water. And that is a good test to show if your starter is actually active. And so as you can see here, our starter is floating on top of the water. So what this test shows is that your starter has enough carbon dioxide in it that can actually help to lift your bread when you're baking it. So now you're gonna add a total of 100 grams of your starter to your water. These are your wet ingredients. And so you're just combining these two. And when we have 100 grams of starter measured out, then we're kind of gonna mix it all together and make it like a milky consistency almost. So now with clean hands, she's gonna go in and just kind of zhuzh it up a little bit, mix it together and get that mixed evenly.
All right, so now you have your wet ingredients. We're gonna set those aside for a minute, grab your larger mixing bowl and start with our dry ingredients.
And then you're gonna add 475 grams of flour. This is organic, unbleached, all-purpose flour. We like to experiment sometimes with einkorn. That's something that we'll make future videos on in the future, so make sure you're subscribed if you aren't already. But right now she's measuring out 475 grams of this flour. There's different recipes out there, but this is just one recipe that we're using today. And then with that, she's also gonna add in 10 grams of our favorite sea salt here. So now it's time to combine the wet with the dry ingredients. So you're just gonna do this slowly. As I pour about half of this in there, she's going to mix it together. And once all of these are mixed together, she's using the dough mixer to kind of mix all this up. You're gonna notice that it's gonna be a stringy consistency. It's not going to be very well formed. It's gonna be stringy, it's gonna kind of be clumpy, but that's okay. Your dough will actually form. Once we do more of our proofing, we'll do some of our stretch and folds in a little bit. You'll notice that this will really start to come together and rise and actually look like a loaf of bread. It's important that you don't wanna overmix this either. You wanna make sure it's just mixed enough that all the ingredients are thoroughly mixed together, but not too much to where you kind of overmix it, right? Now you're just gonna cover your dough with a damp cloth and let it sit for 30 minutes, ideally in a temperature that's a little bit warmer, maybe 70 to 80 degrees. And you're gonna let that sit for 30 minutes because the water needs time to hydrate the flour. So we're gonna come back in 30 minutes and go from there. If the inside of your house isn't warm enough at this point, you can set it outside if it's appropriate temperature. Make sure it's not too hot or it can really blow up, but 70 to 80 degrees is ideal. And during this 30 minutes would be a nice time to refeed your starter. And if you haven't checked out that part 1 video where we talked about how to feed your starter, check that out now. So now it's been 30 minutes and we've allowed our ingredients to come together. Now we're gonna do what's called stretch and folds, and it's exactly as the name implies. We are going to stretch it and fold it over. And so this probably works a little bit better with damp hands. So she just washed her hands and they're still a little bit wet. The dough won't stick to her hands as much. So really all you're gonna do is pick up the dough, stretch it out, let it fall, and then just fold it over. She's kind of pressing it in and then just folding it over. And you're just gonna quarter turn this and do it again. So you're just gonna quarter turn, flip, and fold, quarter turn, and you're gonna do this 4 times. And why you wanna do this series of stretch and folds is because it helps to strengthen the dough, but it also helps to get an even temperature throughout the dough. And it also traps little air pockets inside, which when we let this proof for the next 6 to 8 hours, that's when the magic happens. That's when it starts to blow up and actually look like a sourdough loaf. So now we're just gonna cover it back up with a damp cloth and let sit for 15 to 20 minutes. And you're just gonna repeat that process 3 or 4 more times.
All right, so it's been about 1 hour. We've done our 4 rounds of stretch and folds. Now we're gonna cover it with a plate, let it sit and bulk ferment for about 6 to 8 hours or until it doubles in size.
All right, it's now been 8 hours and our bulk ferment is now complete. So we're going to uncover this and it's basically doubled, maybe even tripled in size. So now we're gonna transition what is gonna be our loaf to the proofing basket. But first we're gonna start off by putting down a cutting board and just laying down a bed of flour. This will help keep it from sticking. So what she's gonna do here, she's gonna really flatten this out into almost like a rectangle and get this pretty thin, but we're gonna stretch this out a little bit. So now she's gonna fold this into thirds, hot dog style, long ways, and then she's gonna roll it from the ends and just kind of roll it up into a ball. And then after she rolls this into a ball, she's gonna do a little bit of push and pull motions, as you can see here. This really helps to form the dough, create those nice air pockets, and form what's going to be our sourdough loaf. Some people like to call this bend and snaps, which is a shout out to Legally Blonde. This might take a little bit of practice. The more you do this, you might not be perfect the first time you do it. We definitely weren't. I'm still not. Bethany does this all the time, so she's a lot better than I am, but this will just come the more you practice it, like anything. You wanna do this about 5 to 10 times through until you get a nice formed ball of dough. So now we're gonna transition this to a pre-floured proofing basket. We're just gonna sit this in here, and then we're gonna cover this, and we're gonna put this in the fridge anywhere from 2 hours up to maybe 72 hours. We found the sweet spot is right around 48 to 60 hours in our fridge, just sitting covered just like this. Sitting it in the fridge at a nice cool temperature keeps it from rising drastically, because when we had this bulk fermenting earlier at a temperature of maybe around 80 degrees, it really rose pretty fast. But putting this in the fridge, it's going to allow it to still ferment, but at a much slower pace. This step here is really where the magic is gonna happen. And we said we found the sweet spot from 48 to 60 hours of fermentation. This is really what gives sourdough its unique benefits. And some of those benefits, like we talked about in the first video, are reducing the glycemic load. So you can eat this and it's probably not going to spike your blood sugar as much. It's also going to reduce the gluten content and some of the other anti-nutrients commonly found in grains. And this is something that our ancestors have been doing for a very, very long time. There was even a recent randomized controlled trial that compared 3 different types of bread in individuals with celiac disease. These individuals, they consumed these 3 different types of breads, and ultimately what the researchers found is that when they consumed properly long fermented sourdough that was fermented for 48 hours, because a lot of the gluten had been reduced, it didn't trigger any symptoms and their gut lining was still intact. So that just really speaks to the fact of what traditional preparation methods like soaking, sprouting, and fermenting can really do to help create a healthy food.
And we highly encourage you to trial out what feels best for you, whether it be the 2 up to 72 hours. Sometimes we've found that if you wait till the 72, it tends to fall a little bit more and not be as voluminous. So definitely experiment with the timing that works best for you. See how it feels when you consume it, see how your gut feels, and that's going to give you the key answer to how long to let it proof in the fridge for.
So now we're going to stick ours in the fridge and we'll see you back here in about 48 hours. What's up guys, real quick, if you are loving this content, then you are absolutely going to love this new ancestral protein powder by Ancestral Supplements. This is 100% grass-fed and grass-finished protein powder, the first ever of its kind. This is a beef bone broth protein isolate combined with organs and medicinal mushrooms with just a little bit of salt and sweetened with monk fruit. Now there's nothing fake or synthetic in here at all. Everything's been third-party lab tested for ultimate purity. There's no artificial sweeteners or anything like that in here. It's completely preservative free and there's definitely no seed oils in this protein powder at all. Now the thing that makes this protein powder super unique is that it's not just a beef bone broth protein powder, but it also combines many different organs like liver, your heart, pancreas, kidney, and spleen, along with bone matrix, and my favorite, medicinal mushrooms. These medicinal mushrooms include lion's mane for brain health, chaga mushroom for immunity, cordyceps for boosting your athletic performance and the bedroom, and reishi for ultimate sleep and immune boosting properties. These mushrooms are grown right here in the United States, and they are all regenerative organic certified. A lot of companies can claim that their products are regenerative, but this is actually regenerative organic certified. This is a complete protein that's going to support your gut health, immune system, metabolism, and muscle growth, and you're not going to want to miss out on trying this. This is brand new, and we are excited to bring this to you. It comes in both vanilla and chocolate, so get your hands on some today. All right, guys, it's been 48 hours, and our sourdough has been fermenting in the fridge this entire time. Now it's time to bake. Our cast iron Dutch oven has been preheating in the oven for an hour at 450 degrees. Now we're gonna turn it down to 425 and get ready to bake. So now it's time to score our sourdough loaf, and you wanna do this fairly quickly because as soon as you put the sourdough on the parchment paper, it's going to start to flatten just a little bit. And scoring is essentially what gives that sourdough that pretty and majestic look. This is where she's gonna take a little knife and just create little designs in it. And you can get really fancy with this, but we keep it fairly simple. This helps the bread to rise and just makes it look overall really nice. She's gonna use chlorine-free parchment paper and stick this in the oven. Now we're gonna put the lid on and stick this in the oven for 25 minutes. After it's been baking for 25 minutes, then you're gonna reach in and take the lid off and bake for an additional 15 minutes or until it turns golden brown. All right, guys, that's how you bake sourdough. We took it out of the oven, and typically you let it rest for about an hour before you cut into it, and that's what we did here. So we are going to remove it from the cast iron, sit it here on our cutting board, and then we are going to use a bread knife. There's a few different kinds, but we're gonna use our bread knife here, and then you just cut nice chunks. As you can see, it's a beautiful loaf of sourdough. You can grab your favorite toppings. We like butter, sometimes jam, just really depends, and enjoy. Cheers. That's really good. Okay. You got jam?